Angelica Live. Brought to you from the Eternal Word Television Studios in Birmingham, Alabama.
Of Jesus. The most glorious work of all, to praise God in His kingdom. Moved by the Spirit, one who lives in love lives in God, and God lives in him. What a wonderful thing is our church. This whole network is built on trust. The essence of evangelization is to tell everybody Jesus loves you. We are all called to be great saints. Don't miss the opportunity. Well, we're going to talk about Jesus for sure. And tonight, no matter what you think, I have to be good tonight. Because I have a very wonderful, kind, loving cardinal here tonight from Puerto Rico, Cardinal Aponte. So we want to give him a big hand. So I'm going to be good, I think. Tonight we're going to talk. I wanted to share something with you over the weekend. I went to St. Louis over the weekend, and I talked to Archbishop Regali, who was a very wonderful experience, and Cardinal Carberry, who has been in a nursing home for many years. He had a stroke. A very holy man, and he looked at me and he went. I said, thank you. Anyway, we had a nice time together. But what I want to tell you and share with you is, if you're ever in St. Louis, and if you never go. Because they have the most magnificent cathedral I ever saw. It's, there are more mosaics in that cathedral than anywhere in the world. And you really got to see that. You know, you go all over Europe for this church and that church, and you got them in your backyard. You never go. So beside the Basilica of our Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C., if you're going east, if you go darting west, I would stop at make a tour sometime of beautiful churches in America. The mosaics are just striking. And you know, they're just little tiny things, and you get a whole cathedral filled with tiny pieces of colored glass. It's unbelievable. Tonight, I didn't know really what to talk about, so we thought maybe tolerance. Tolerance, it's something we don't often think about. And I think tolerance is a great virtue, because intolerance affects an awful lot of our life. You wouldn't think so. For example, if you know, sometime when I went to school, I was intolerant with nuns. Because the nuns at my school used to wear something that came out way here. And if you ever sat behind them in church, you could forget everything. You could listen, but you could never see. So I was not very tolerant of sitting in church. And people are not tolerant of babies crying. You thought that's not tolerance. Oh yeah, you're getting upset and wishing they'd go away. You're intolerant. I'd like to talk about tolerance because I think it's one of the hindrances to holiness of life. You know what it says here in Ephesians? It says, bear with Ephesians 4, second verse. Bear with one another charitably, that's tolerance. In complete selflessness. Ooh, that's a word we don't even know anymore. Gentleness and patience. I would like to say that that is one of the best definitions of tolerance. And tolerance so much isn't in the feelings. In the old days when they wore hats. You ever wear hats anymore? Nobody wore hats. Well, when they used to wear hats, I think it was a lot of intolerance because some of them were pretty big. Do you remember those? My mother used to make her own, and I'd tell you, it had everything on it but the kitchen sink. And you became intolerant towards hats. You became intolerant towards a lot of things, and then we became intolerant with color. If you were black or Indian or brown, suddenly brings out something in your heart that's not of God. That's intolerance. And today I think we have a lot of intolerance. We have intolerance towards people that are another language, another nationality. We have intolerance a lot with races. We have intolerance with religion. You'd say, oh, that's not true. Oh, yeah, it's getting more true. Have you noticed that? And I think tolerance is in the will. It can't be in the memory unless somebody told you this particular race should be hated. And your great-great-grandmother or grandfather told you that. That's the beginning of intolerance. It can't be in the intellect because it doesn't make sense, does it? I think people can't help where they're born or how they're born or what they look like. So how can you be intolerant towards someone because they're black or Indian or Chinese or Japanese or anything? So it doesn't make any sense. Tolerance is in the will. We make decisions not to like these people or that people. Now, I know what you're thinking. You'll say, Mother, you're intolerant with liberals. No, I am not intolerant. I'm trying to give them light. There's a difference. And tolerance says this is right or wrong, but it doesn't have a feeling of hatred. See, for example, have you noticed how hard it is for you to forgive sometimes? Anybody here have a hard time forgiving? Oh, wow. How many have a hard time forgiving? Oh, come on, we know you have a hard time forgiving. We do. And we don't forgive because we're not tolerant. We don't make excuses for people. Isn't that one reason you have a hard time forgiving? It would never dawn on you this person didn't mean it or didn't know they did it. See, that's tolerance. Tolerance, if you have a hard time forgiving, it isn't always tolerance, but ask yourself, do I expect too much from people? You know, some people are perfectionists. You ever notice that? Aren't they pains in the neck? You know, I went to somebody's house when I was a kid. And I went in the front door, and the girl I wanted to see came around from the back, and she said, "We don't use the front door." I said, "Why? It just broke?" She said, "No, you might get the living room dirty." So I said, "Well, where do I go?" She said, "Come around this way." So we went down the basement. And I said, "Where do you live?" She said, "Well, we live upstairs sometimes. Most of the time we're downstairs." I said, "Why?" I said, "Could I sneak?" Your mother wasn't around. So I said, "Could I sneak upstairs and see how clean it is?" She said, "Yeah." So I went up to, it was immaculate. I mean, immaculate. I said, "How old is that sofa?" She's 20 years old. It was just as clean as if she just bought it. And I thought, I went back to my little old Italian grandmother's house. I felt so good. There was a big spot on the sofa. Been there as long as I remember. It was clean, but there was a nice big spot. You know, you could take your shoes off and put them right on the sofa. My grandma would say a word. She wouldn't mind if you had mud on your shoes, but you know, you felt at home at Grandma's house. It was, the furniture looked pretty beat up and used. But that's intolerance. You see, we get intolerant towards dirt. We can be intolerant about anything. And that's what you need to, in your journey to holiness. Sometimes intellectuals are intolerant for those who don't have an education. One time I went to a convention. Intolerance can even be in religious. Our particular order is what you call mitigated. Do you know what that means? Mitigated? Well, on a ladder, we'd be at the bottom rung. So we're a mitigated order, which means it's somewhere in the 18th century, or way back in about, let's see, 1500, something like that. Girls who didn't have the physical endurance for a lot of penance and other things, they mitigated the rule. They just brought it down a little bit to allow everybody, or those who were sickly, or those who were not, you know, very, very penitential to live. It was still hard, still difficult, but still there were a lot of things they didn't do. So I went to this convention, and this nun came up to me and she said, "And what rule do you follow?" I said, "The mitigated rule of Urban IV." And she said, "Oh." I said, "What do you mean, oh?" See, sometimes we're so set in our minds and hearts on the way we think things should be, the way we think people should be. Maybe you don't think your husband ought to read the newspaper at breakfast. But maybe that's the only time. See, here's the difference between intolerance and tolerance. Here we just read where we should be selfless. Well, if you want to talk to your husband, and this is the only time all day long he has to look at the sports. Okay? So what is the tolerant thing to do? Let him enjoy it. I mean, if you peek your head over and say, "Hi." I had a man tell me one time his wife put the fist through the newspaper. I said, "Well, that ought to tell you something." The whole thing is, though, but if you're intolerant, you don't look for the good of other people. Do you ever wonder about that? So, well, I'm not intolerant. Now examine yourself. See, you're not always, what is the best for someone else? Do you ever notice that you're in a house, if you have air conditioning, there's always a hot box in every house? I'm not too good at this myself. There's always those that are always hot, and there's always those always freezing. See? But if you don't give a little, then you become intolerant of cold or heat. Sometimes we think intolerance is only for race or color. You're intolerant towards black or towards Chinese or whatever. That's not it. How many people are intolerant against the church? You know, the other day we had Bishop Sullivan here from Fargo and Dr. Miravalli. And we were talking about we hope our Holy Father will define the teaching in the Church of Mary, mediatrix of all grace, and co-redemptrix. We never got so many nasty calls. Not on the air, but in the monastery. Oh, why would you do that? You're intolerant against Our Lady. That she's the Mother of God. Let's look at it on a little simple level. When we say Our Lady is co-redemptrix, now don't turn me off, just listen, okay? Don't be intolerant. When we say she's co-redemptrix, from the very first moment of the incarnation, she said, yes, be it done to me according to thy will. What did that mean? Our Lady spent at least 10 years in the temple, very versed in Scripture. Okay. The Lord doesn't ask you to do anything if He doesn't give you light to understand. So your yes or no is enlightened. Especially if it's a great mission like she had. So when the angel said you would become the mother of the Son of God, she knew exactly from the Scriptures what it meant. She knew, for example, that from His birth, from His conception to His birth, all the way she knew exactly He would become a man of sorrows, a worm and no man. He would be crucified. She knew the Scriptures. You're not talking about a 12-year-old dodo. You're talking about a woman that was prepared to be Mother of God with an intelligence far superior to even the angels. So she knew. She knew exactly what kind of sacrifice she was going to have to make. And she said, yes, that quick. What opposite is today, huh? A woman goes to the doctor and he said, you're going to have a Down syndrome child. They take some kind of test, and she aborts it. You see the difference between Our Lady and some of the people, the mentality of today? If my child is not going to be absolutely perfect, I don't want it. Mary knew. She knew exactly what was going to happen to the Messiah. But she didn't say no. Some people abort their children just because they're going to have a little defect. A crippled leg, a crippled arm. See, we're intolerant. We're intolerant even towards our own. And see the difference between tolerating something. Usually when you say somebody tolerates something, I mean they endure it, kind of haphazard or sour, you know? But that isn't what tolerant means. It means to accept. Accept everything that was in the life of Jesus. See? And so we can say, really, she co-redemptrix, not instead of or equal to, with. There's a marvelous passage in Scripture that says Our Lady stood beneath the cross. Why did she stand? Why wasn't she like any other woman that would have fainted or yelled or screamed? She stood. Silently stood. Why? Her son was standing on a tiny piece of wood. And she stood with him. What does that mean, she stood tall? It means she accepted. Did she just accept everything that happened to Jesus because it happened to him? Yes. She also accepted it for you and me. She did. She suffered the pains of Jesus for you and me. That's what we mean. To me, that's so logical. Every mother does that every time a child gets sick. Last night, one of our workmen, they couldn't find their son, and it was getting late and dark, and they were hysterical. It's a feeling, you know, a feeling of loss. Can you say, well, they didn't suffer? Well, they did. So this man suffered with his wife, and this wife suffered with her husband, trying to find their child. That's see, they suffered together. They suffered together. Their suffering was one suffering because they were so close together. And they lost someone they loved very much. So that's what it means to be co-redemptrix. She didn't take the place of Jesus. She didn't have the same merit. She was not God. She is not God. She's a human being in which there is unbelievable humility and acceptance. That's what tolerance is all about. Humble people are always tolerant. And they're hard to get along with. Did you ever notice that holy people are awfully hard to get along with? They don't think like we think. In the annals of Holy Father Francis, Brother Juniper was hard to get along with. He did things that nobody else would do. Like, for example, one of the brothers was dying. And he was hungry for a pig's foot. Pig's foot. What did Brother Juniper do? He goes out and he catches one of the neighbor's pigs, he cuts off the foot, and he goes and prepares it for this dying brother. I think I had to pick something else, but anyway. Well, when the farmer found a pig with 3 legs, he just had a fit. Just a fit. So he knew exactly who did it. See, he knew it was this Brother Juniper. So he brings this poor maimed pig to the monastery and he calls the superior and he gave it to him. He said, that crazy Brother Juniper cut off one of my pig's foot. And so the abbot, the minister, Jerry, calls Brother Juniper. He said, did you cut off this man's pig's foot? He said, yes, Father. He said, why would you do such a crazy thing? Oh, Father, he said, our brother was dying and he was so hungry for a pig's foot. And I knew this farmer was a very kind man, and very charitable. And that he wouldn't mind if his pig had one less foot. Well, that isn't exactly what the farmer thought. But he was so taken up with Brother's humility. He said to the ministry, he said, here, take it. Have it for supper. Well, the superior wasn't very tolerant. And so he yelled so hard at Brother Juniper, he got hoarse. And what did Brother Juniper do? He said, I was so sorry for his superior. Can you imagine that? And it was around midnight, and he thought, I feel so bad. He scolded me so bad, he got hoarse. I think I ought to go make him some hot porridge. So he goes, he's got a great big bowl of hot porridge. At 2 o'clock in the morning, he wakes up his superior. Knock, knock. Well, the superior comes, and all he could see is that face of Brother Juniper. And he said, what do you want? Oh, Father, he said, I noticed today you scolded me so harshly and so much that you got hoarse. And I was thinking as I lie in bed, how much pain you must have. And I made you a little hot porridge at 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, I know this looks like exaggerated, but it isn't. It's something that's exasperating. But see, if you're having problems with your neighbor, your family, your husband, your wife, your children, before you blame everything and everybody, ask yourself, how do I handle exasperation? Are you never supposed to be angry? I think not. Our dear Lord was angry at the money changers. Are you never supposed to be upset or impatient? I don't think so. But so often we're these things unnecessarily, huh? You ever get mad at somebody just for some little thing? Sometimes you don't like the way people comb their hair. And today you go down the street, you know, I wonder how many people stay awake all night wondering how miserable they can make somebody's hair look. Did you ever notice? I saw a young boy the other day. This part was shaven. And he had a long hair here, all down to his back, about that much of it. And this part was shaven halfway. And I said to somebody, is that what you call a skinhead? And they said, oh no, that's the style. Style? You mean he paid for that? So yeah, he paid quite a lot for it. And see, we're I don't know, we do strange things today, and it's partly, I guess we're intolerant towards what's good and holy. We're not tolerant towards what's just normal. You know, we have a hatred for what's normal. I mean, why can't a boy have just hair on his head? I mean, just whatever God gave him, you know, and just cut it off in the right spots. Why is it that you have to mutilate it? And then I couldn't get over that. And then I looked at this one woman, and she looked very nice, very clean and neatly dressed, but it looked like her clothes were put in a dry rigger. They were like this, and it was all wrinkled. And I said, do they do that on purpose, or did they get up late this morning? Oh no, you pay a big price for wrinkled clothes. Says, oh, my grandmother would have died if we wore wrinkled clothes. Then I went to the store not too long after that, and by golly, they were racks of wrinkled clothes. And I noticed a pair of pants. That's what you call it, what you wear, trousers, whatever you wear. One leg was shorter than the other. And isn't that funny though? Don't you think that's funny? You can just accept that, huh? You just think, well, that's the style. But if I had time, you know, I would have waited to see who bought that one pair. But see, we're not tolerant anymore about what is good and holy and ordinary. See? We wear wrinkled clothes, we wear spotted clothes. The best thing I ever saw was blue jeans that looked like you wore them a long time. All frayed at the bottom. And great big white spots like you bleached them in the wrong place. And I said to this person, do they buy those? I said, I could have given them free when I was a kid. See, there is an intolerance. See, we're not even, there's an honesty to intolerance. See, you know what I think those things are? And I know it's a style, and this is my opinion. See, my opinion when you do things is you mock the poor, who have to wear things so long. They're jagged and ragged and have big holes in the knees just from wear and poverty. And then we spend all kinds of money for things like that, see? It's a kind of intolerance that really hits your heart. One time, about 4 or 5 teenagers came along. They had a great big beautiful red car. Wow. And it looked brand new. They come in and want to know what we did and who we were. And so I spent a good hour and a half with them. And so I just chit-chat, and I said, are you happy at home? And they said, no. Oh, I'd say, why not? And this young boy said, my mother and father are fakes. I said, how so? Said, well, they go to church every Sunday, but they don't live the right life. And he went on and on and on. And I said, is that your car out there? He said, yeah. Who bought it for you? He said, my mother and father from my birthday. I said, oh. I said, did you wear these blue jeans out, or you buy them that way? He said, we bought them that way. I said, join the club. You're also a fake. Because you criticize your parents for buying you a new car, and you pretend you're poor, and you're not. Well, who's fake? Well, they left, but they never came back. But you see, let's examine ourselves. If you're having a hard time at the office getting along with this one and that one, ask yourself, am I intolerant? Do I allow my brother and sister to be what they are at the moment? Oh, sure, we all need repentance. We all need change. We all need renewal in our hearts, first of all. We all need to be perfected. We all need to be purified. But what is it about your neighbor, the person you work with, the people you work with, your husband, your wife, what is it that you are intolerant about? We have a call. Hello?
Hello, Mother.
Where are you from?
D'Iberville, Mississippi.
And what is your question?
I wanted to ask you, one of the priests at our parish this week at the daily mass referred to the Holy Spirit as a she. And also, before communion, instead of saying, happy are those who are called to his supper, he'll say meal. And I interpret it as like trying to spur us or something. And where do you draw the line between being tolerant to this and then having to stand up and doing something about the, I wouldn't call heresy? Thank you.
Well, I'm going to pretend Cardinal Aponte isn't here. It's this inclusive language they start putting in here and there. You see, we got to be very careful when we take the sacrifice out of the Mass. You take the Mass out of the sacrifice. The Mass is a sacrifice. And when they start with the meal, the supper, and it is a meal, but it is also, most important, a sacrifice. Jesus sacrificed on the cross for me and for you. We die with him daily. We take up our cross daily. I think there is a difference between tolerance and saying, well, let everything go. For example, if your child was on drugs, it is not tolerance not to correct them. Correction is a part of being tolerant, which means you love this person so much that you want him to get away from the wrong direction and come in the right direction. See, you can become intolerant in correction by being harsh with your correction, by letting that person know you not only dislike what he did, but you dislike that one person. See, you got to divorce from your correction the person that committed the sin. So you hate the sin, but you love the sinner. That's what tolerance is. Intolerance is when you hate both. It's also pride. You see, the Pharisee was intolerant. I tithe, I fast, and I'm sure glad I'm not like this man behind me. That's the essence of intolerance. He rash judged. It is charity on your part to go and tell him that this is wrong. He has no permission from anybody to use inclusive language in the consecration. That's not right. And you love him less, see, by letting him go. We have another call. Hello?
Hi, Mother.
Where are you from?
Los Angeles.
Wonderful. What's your question?
Well, you made this a special day for me. I got through to Rush Limbaugh this morning. I get to talk to you this afternoon. I also turned in a bunch of petitions to our local cable company here in Los Angeles, and I think in June we might get you on our cable
Wonderful.
system.
Keep at it.
Okay, dear. My question was, we were talking about the
Co-redemptrix.
Co-redemptus.
Right.
And I think that title belongs to everyone who carries Christ to other people, and I think we need modern-day saints and people to consider themselves that way. I think we all participate in giving Christ's message to other people, and so doing, that makes us co-redemptress.
Well, in St. Paul's epistle, he says, this is a wicked generation, and your lives should redeem it. See, what does that mean? There's nothing you can add to the sufferings of Jesus. He is the only, one and only Redeemer. But we add our part. By our example, we help our neighbor to suffer more when sufferings come his way. We help to save souls. We even help those poor souls in purgatory. You see, we imitate Jesus. He offered himself for mankind. We offer ourselves for poor sinners. And St. Paul said that we should suffer for what is wanting in the sufferings of Jesus. But there's nothing wanting. God is infinite. We're finite, you see. But it means add to. Be with. That's what it means. And when we talk about Our Lady, co-redemptrix, mediatrix of all grace, we say with Jesus. She suffered with Jesus the most perfect way. The apostles left. They ran away. John stuck around because he loved Our Lady. He was feeling sorry for her, and he loved the Lord in a very special way. One denied him, one betrayed him. Mary stood the whole way. See, the others later on began to understand the role of suffering, especially the disciples going to Emmaus. Our Lord appeared, and they didn't even see him. They didn't even recognize him. He said, wasn't it necessary for the Messiah to suffer? And he went through the scriptures, and they said their heart burned within them. See? And so you have to realize that we all suffer for mankind. And the more evil humanity becomes, the more corrupt, the more it flies away from the Lord, the more it rejects Jesus and the Father and the commandments, the more we're going to suffer. It goes together. Thank you. We have another call. Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How old are you?
7.
And what is your question?
Sometimes I get mad at my brother, but then I freeze, and then I pray, and then I sort of forget about it.
You forget to pray for your brother?
Say a prayer.
Is that what you do?
No,
What is it?
I say a prayer, and then I just forget about what I did to my brother.
Oh, well. See, when you get angry at you're 7, you're getting angry already? That's okay, sweetheart. I got angry when I was 3. I told my grandmother to shut up, that she was all the time talking. I remember it today even. I mean, I've mentioned it several times. But see, if you get angry at your brother, and then you pray, and you ask Jesus to forgive you, then you need to forget. You need to apologize to your brother. Then you need to forget this past offense and go forward with renewed confidence. See, many times people make a big mistake. Once they do something, no matter what it is, then what happens is we keep thinking backwards. Why did I do that? And I shouldn't have done it. And why do I always do this? I saw it coming, I didn't listen. You're sorry, you told Jesus you're sorry, but what's a biggie? You went to confession. Drop it. Drop it. And see, sometimes it's a lack of tolerance, when we get angry at people. Maybe your brother was playing with a little car, and you wanted to play with him, and he wouldn't let you do it. See, the lack of tolerance. See, there's great power in prayer to strengthen our tolerance. I have to say, Jesus, I was very intolerant today. I get mad at the kids because they're always coming in with muddy feet. Well, I correct them over and over and over, but they still come in with muddy feet. Next time I'll lock the door. Then I can be tolerant and they can wash their feet. We have another call. Hello?
Yes. Hello, Mother Angelica.
Where are you from?
From New Jersey.
And what is your question?
It's more of a statement and to ask for your help or to try to have all of the people who listen to the show maybe perhaps move in a grassroots effort. I just received a notification today, and you're speaking about religious intolerance, and I received a notification that the federal government has announced its intention to ban religious speech in the workplace. And it is through the EEO Commission, which is the Equal Opportunities Employment Commission. And these regulations will prohibit the expression of religion in places of employment, including displays of religious symbols such as crosses and things of this nature.
Right. There's a tremendous amount of intolerance coming on everywhere. This country is built on a freedom of religion. It's true. You wouldn't even be able to have a little Sacred Heart badge in your car, because then you'd be harassing somebody that passes by and looks at it. That's how unreasonable we can get, you see. So it's coming. And I think just as a lot of letters and phone calls prohibited the rule of the law of forbidding homeschool, I think if you want to continue wearing your medals and having a little St. Anthony on your desk and having something on your car, which is really an American thing, we've always done that, then I think you need to write as soon as possible to your congressman, your write to the government, write anywhere and call. Because once we start that, it's just very, very not too far away that you can't worship in the way you want to. So be careful now. The world is changing so rapidly, sometimes we don't want to see it, but you have to face it and you have to get involved. We have another call. Hello?
Hello, Mother Angelica.
Where are you from?
Hanover, Maine.
And what is your question?
How do you stay sane in an insane world?
How do you what?
Stay sane in an insane world.
How you stay sane in an insane world? You love Jesus. That's how you stay sane in an insane world. You see a higher being that has the whole thing in his hand. See? You also have to remember that everything that happens in the world is either ordained or permitted by God. I believe in purification. I really do. I don't think we can kill babies the way we do. And now we're trying to justify suicide, and now we have assisting a suicide. And we're telling God every day, away, we don't want you, we don't have anything to do with you. And the more we do that, the worse we're going to get. See? There's a lack of not only tolerance, but compassion and love. And I think you need to understand, the worst purification in the world is when God doesn't purify you. When he doesn't. For the simple reason that we just go down, 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 and the first thing you know, we don't even act like human beings. We act like animals. And that's what's happening today, you see. Sex among 8th graders and teenagers, and we just go on and on and on and on, see. We never have the courage that comes from God himself to face the reality and say, this is wrong. This is against the law of God. We're very diplomatic. I don't know, I could never be a diplomat. A diplomat to me is somebody who says a lot, but you haven't the slightest idea of what he says. And you go away, you say, isn't that wonderful? But you're scratching your head, as if to say, Well, he wasn't angry, but he wasn't nice. And he wasn't in between. I didn't get what I wanted, but he didn't say no either. So by the time you leave, you haven't, and that's a diplomat. They just have a knack and trained that way. I don't know how you train. Trained to say a lot. Everybody walks away thinking they got an answer. They had the faintest idea what you said. Well, we can't do that anymore. See, you really can't. It's like a little hole in the ground and you keep forgetting it and you don't do anything about it and it rains. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the first thing you know, you're going to fall in it. See, that's about what it is. See, it's like if somebody said, "There's no hole there." I said, "Oh, really? No. See, over here it's nice and solid." But the hole gets bigger. Remember the little thing about the king who had no clothes? And everybody said, "Whoa, those are beautiful clothes." And this little kid said, "Ha ha, the king is naked." He was the only one that faced the truth. The only one that said it. So I would be very careful today. The more you let go, the harder it's going to be to get it back. That's why television, Catholic television, is so important. And this wonderful cardinal is here tonight. He's going to have television in Puerto Rico. And we're going to help him get it there. Because without television and radio to keep you enlightened as to what does God expect of you, not what this person or that person or this political party or what this organization, what does God want from you? We have another call. Hello?
Hello, Mother Angelica?
Yeah, where are you from?
I'm from Maryland.
And what is your question?
Well, it's not really a question. It's two things that I wanted to mention to you. The first was about tolerance, what you were talking about tonight.
Tolerance.
Yes. It's about my husband and myself. And we knew before we got married that there was a lot about us that was incompatible. And over the years, I guess I went on a little spiritual growth, I guess you could say. My prayers used to be, "God, change him. Just change him. I can't stand him," you know?
Yeah.
And it grew into a prayer that's now, "Lord, please help me to love him more."
That's better?
Yeah, and instead of wanting to change him.
I think that's a beautiful prayer, because many times our intolerance is what makes us so impatient with other people. We have to love other people the way they are at this moment, knowing they have to get better, knowing they have to change, you see. You can't love people and wait for them to change. You won't end up loving anybody. See? You have to love people as they are right now, hoping they'll be better, but hoping you'll be better. And I think what helped you the most is that perpetual adoration you went to, see? When you go before the Blessed, I can't say that often enough. No matter what kind of problems are in this world, there's only two things that are going to change you. Adoration before the Blessed Sacrament, prayer before the Blessed Sacrament, devotion to the Blessed Sacrament, processions to the Blessed Sacrament, and love for our sweet Mother. If we don't get those two things back in our lives, in our churches, in our country, you can call it quits. Call it quits. We have another call. Hello? Hi, where are you from?
From Fairhope, Alabama.
And what is your question?
Well, I find myself very intolerant at Mass sometimes. Just as an example, during the Our Father, a woman next to me, she grabbed my hand, and toward the end of the Our Father, she started to lift her hands high, and I kind of found myself in an arm wrestle with her, and I found myself feeling very resentful. And I was just wondering, why don't people... I I was just wondering why they don't use more common sense during liturgy and honor some sensitivities here. It really wrecks things for me right before communion.
Yeah, come to our church. We say the whole thing in Latin. I understand. I really do. It kind of goes both ways, I think. And I think if you are tolerant, you can let her hold your hand up there. But you see, so often we have taken away the awesomeness of the Mass. We have taken away that mystique. And now we're just all buddies, see? And I think it's beautiful to know that I am there with my neighbor, that we are the church, but we also have to know that we are present at a Mass in which the Son of God, the eternal Word, comes down in the most wondrous miracle in the world. And the body, blood, soul, and the real presence of Jesus come down. And you got to get rid of all this honky-tonky business. You know, you just, we put up balloons and we just pat each other on the back. But look, if you're mad at somebody, for goodness sake, say so before Mass. You know, the gospel says if you have something about your brother, before you go to the altar, ask for forgiveness. Well, you know where I think the kiss of peace ought to be? Let me tell you anyway. It ought to be at the offertory. That's where you offer your gift. Well, before you offer your gift, the scripture says, be reconciled with your brother. But if you're looking at your neighbor and you know you're going to have an arm wrestle with her in just about 10 minutes, you see, even though you say, how are you, I love you, you don't mean it in your heart. See, we got to get back to that awesome reverence at the Mass. See, we don't have that anymore. We're just kind of, I don't know, we stomp our feet, clap our hands, and oh, that's fine in the right place. But do you think anybody stomped their feet and clapped their hands on Calvary? The only ones that made noise were the Pharisees. Come down from the cross if you're so great, and then we'll believe you. See? And I don't mean to criticize those who have beautiful masses or guitar masses or anything. It's just that that's a place for awe. It's a place for silence. Silence. There's no silence anymore. They walk in like a bunch of, I don't know what. You think you're at a picnic or something. And they walk out, hello, Mr. Jones, how are you? Hey, you just went to Mass. You just received the body and blood of Jesus. Can't you keep your mouth shut for 2 minutes? So I think that's where we need to examine ourselves and say, look, I'm at Mass. See? Our communities, both the brothers and ourselves, have begun to prostrate at Mass. Because that's what the angels do. If you could see the angels just once at Mass, there'd be no more shenanigans. When that bell rings for the consecration, every angel in those churches prostrate. And you know you can prove that by Our Lady of Fatima. Do you remember the angel that appeared to them, before Our Lady did? And he held up the Blessed Sacrament and the monstrance, the chalice, and then he came down and he prostrated himself and said this beautiful prayer. See? Well, we have to get back to that. And you know, once we get back to the real essence of the Mass, and once we get back to Jesus in our hearts, once we get back to that realization, I bear within me the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and so do you. When we get that back, then we'll have respect for each other. And then when we go to Mass, we will already have loved each other. And then we see that awesome sacrifice. See? He died just for me. And no matter how many troubles you have, how many heartaches, when you realize He died just for you, and you attend that every Mass, it makes a difference in your life. I know. I know. Well, I've enjoyed being with you tonight, and we've got a lot of our family here tonight that we love. And just so you don't think I'm getting old, remember, put us between your gas and electric bill so I can annoy you further. I love you. See you tomorrow.